Right now, 4 astronauts are falling toward Earth. They have been weightless for 10 days. They have traveled nearly 700,000 miles. They have seen the far side of the moon, and they floated in silence behind it. If you asked most people what the hardest part of the mission was, they would probably say the launch, or the heat shield, or the 40 minutes with no communication behind the moon. They would be wrong. The hardest part is what happens after they land. The human body was not built for space. It was built for Earth, for gravity, for a constant downward pull that shapes every system inside you from the moment you are born. Take that pull away for 10 days, and the body does not just idle. It starts to dismantle itself. It begins within hours of reaching orbit. On Earth, gravity pulls roughly 2 liters of blood and fluid into your lower body at all times. Your heart has to work against that pull to deliver blood to your brain, and your blood vessels are calibrated to manage that resistance. In microgravity, there is nothing pulling the fluid down. It redistributes, migrating from your legs upward into your torso, chest, neck, and head. Your legs shrink. Your face swells. Your sinuses fill with pressure. Astronauts call this the puffy face and bird legs effect, and every single person who goes to space experiences it. The Artemis II crew would have felt it within their first day. They experienced nasal congestion, a sensation of fullness in the head, and difficulty breathing through the nose. It feels like a permanent head cold that never clears. But the fluid shift is just the beginning. Your body senses the extra fluid in the upper body and interprets it as having too much blood. The cardiovascular system responds by reducing blood volume. It stops producing as many red blood cells. Plasma volume drops. Over the course of a mission as short as 10 days, astronauts can lose up to 22% of their total blood volume. This is called space anemia, and it creates a problem that will not become apparent until the crew comes home. With less blood in the system and a heart that has been pumping against zero resistance for over a week, the cardiovascular system is profoundly deconditioned. The heart itself begins to change shape. In microgravity, without the need to pump blood upward against gravity, the heart becomes slightly more spherical, losing some of the elongated shape that makes it efficient at working under gravitational load. The muscles of the heart do not atrophy as fast as skeletal muscles, but they weaken. Cardiac output drops. The entire system becomes optimized for a world with no weight, which is a dangerous adaptation when you're about to re-enter a world that has plenty of it. Then there are the muscles. On Earth, even standing still requires constant engagement of the muscles in your legs, back, and core. Walking, climbing stairs, sitting upright, all of these activities load your muscles against gravity thousands of times a day without you thinking about it. In space, none of that happens. Your legs become almost decorative. You push off walls with your fingertips. You float from module to module using barely any force at all. Within weeks, astronauts can lose 10 to 20% of their lean muscle mass, and the losses are concentrated in exactly the muscles you need most when you return: the calves, the quads, the muscles of the lower back. The Artemis II crew exercise daily on a device called a flywheel, a 30-pound cable-based resistance machine that can simulate rowing, squats, and deadlifts with up to 400 pounds of resistance. For context, the exercise equipment on the International Space Station weighs over 4,000 pounds and takes up 850 cubic feet. The flywheel does a fraction of the same work in a fraction of the space. But exercise in space does not fully prevent muscle loss. It slows it. After 10 days, the crew's muscles will be measurably weaker than when they left. The bones are worse. On Earth, your skeleton is constantly being remodeled. Old bone is broken down by cells called osteoclasts and replaced by new bone built by osteoblasts. The two processes are tightly coupled, one breaking down what the other rebuilds, maintaining a stable structure. In microgravity, the system uncouples. Without the mechanical stress of weight bearing, the osteoclasts keep working, but the osteoblasts slow down. The result is a net loss of bone density, roughly 1 to 2% per month in weight-bearing bones, like the pelvis, spine, and legs. On a 10-day mission, the bone loss is measurable but modest. On a 6-month mission to the International Space Station, it becomes serious. On a 3-year round trip to Mars, it could become crippling. The calcium that leaves the bones does not disappear. It enters the bloodstream and eventually the kidneys, raising the risk of kidney stones. Another hazard the crew has to manage in a capsule the size of a large closet, with a toilet that has already malfunctioned once during the mission. And then there's the part that doesn't get talked about enough: the eyes. NASA has documented a condition called spaceflight-associated neuro-ocular syndrome, in which increased intracranial pressure from the fluid shift causes the back of the eyeball to flatten, the optic nerve to swell, and the astronaut's vision to blur. On short missions, the effects are usually temporary. On longer missions, some astronauts have reported vision changes that persisted for years after returning to Earth. About 23% of short-flight astronauts and 49% of long-flight astronauts have reported vision problems during or after their missions. The Artemis II crew is being monitored for these changes as part of the mission's human health research objectives, alongside sleep pattern analysis, cardiovascular data, and radiation dosimetry. They punched through the Van Allen radiation belts twice, once on the way out and once on the way home, exposed to the concentrated bands of charged particles that Earth's magnetic field traps around the planet. Every crewed mission since Apollo 17 in 1972 has stayed safely below those belts. The Artemis II crew went through them. The radiation data from this mission will directly shape crew selection and mission duration limits for every deep space mission that follows. Now imagine all of this happening at once, and then imagine it ending. Not gradually, not gently, but with a wall of force. When Orion hits the atmosphere on April 10th at 25,000 miles per hour, the crew will go from zero gravity to approximately 4 times the force of gravity in a matter of minutes. Their bodies, which have spent 10 days adapting to a world with no weight, will suddenly be subjected to the equivalent of 3 extra copies of themselves sitting on their chest. Blood that has been floating freely in the upper body will slam downward into the legs. The heart, deconditioned and slightly reshaped after 10 days without gravitational resistance, will have to pump hard enough to keep blood flowing to the brain against a force it has not experienced in over a week. If it cannot keep up, the astronaut's vision narrows, their hearing fades, and they lose consciousness. This is called G-induced loss of consciousness, and it is the reason the crew will be wearing compression garments under their suits, squeezing the lower body to prevent blood from pooling. 1 in 4 astronauts returning from the space station cannot stand quietly for 10 continuous minutes within hours of landing. They get lightheaded, their heart races, they experience palpitations, and some of them faint. That is after 6 months with daily 2-hour exercise sessions and a gradual readaptation protocol. The Artemis II crew will have had 10 days, a 30-pound flywheel, and whatever their bodies can manage. After splashdown in the Pacific, the crew will be recovered by the USS John P. Murtha and undergo immediate medical evaluation on the ship. But the testing does not stop there. NASA has scheduled post-landing functional tests for the crew, including an obstacle course and a simulated spacewalk, designed to assess how quickly they readapt to gravity. This data matters because the Artemis program is not just going to the moon, it is going to Mars. And the question NASA needs to answer is this: if 10 days of weightlessness does this, what does 6 months do? What does 9 months do? What does a 3-year round trip to Mars do to a crew that has to land on another planet, climb out of a capsule, and immediately begin working on the surface in a gravity field they have not felt in years? Apollo astronauts came home after 8 to 12 days in space. Some of them could barely walk off the recovery helicopter. Buzz Aldrin described the physical toll as significant. Crews were visibly unsteady on the carrier deck, gripping railings and moving carefully. Those were military test pilots in peak physical condition who had spent half their mission inside a lunar module on the surface of the moon, where gravity was at least something, 1/6 of Earth's. The Artemis II crew had zero gravity for the entire 10 days. No surface stay, no partial gravity, just pure weightlessness from launch to splashdown. The longest continuous exposure to microgravity of any lunar mission crew in history. The human body is spectacularly good at adapting. That's the problem. It adapts to space just as readily as it adapts to Earth. And every adaptation it makes for microgravity is a liability when gravity returns. The fluid redistribution that relieved your legs becomes a cardiovascular crisis when blood crashes downward. The muscle loss that made floating effortless makes walking agonizing. The bone density your skeleton quietly discarded makes your first stumble a potential fracture. The body does not know you are coming home. It thinks you have moved. It rebuilt itself for a place that does not pull, and now you are asking it to survive, a place that pulls very hard, very suddenly, at 4 times the force it was designed for. The Artemis II crew will come home. They will stand up. They will recover. Most of the effects of a 10-day mission are reversible within weeks to months, but the data they bring back, the cardiovascular readings, the bone scans, the muscle assessments, the radiation exposure profiles, the vision tests, the sleep logs will form the medical foundation for every deep space mission NASA plans for the next 30 years. 4 people went to the moon and back. What their bodies went through on the way home may matter more than anything they saw through the window. If you want to keep exploring what the universe is really doing, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.